Imagine you are pregnant. No hospital, no doctor, no ultrasound, no painkillers, no sterile room, no number to call, no app tracking your weeks, no stranger in a white coat telling you everything is normal. Nothing between you and the most dangerous physical experience a human body can go through, except the people standing next to you and whatever knowledge they carried in their heads. This is not a worst-case scenario from a disaster movie. This was every pregnancy, for almost all of human history. And here is the part that will stay with you. Your ancestors not only survived it, they built systems around it so sophisticated, so deeply woven into the fabric of daily life, that modern medicine is only now beginning to understand what those systems were actually doing. What happened to a pregnant woman 50,000 years ago is not a story of suffering and luck. It is a story of collective intelligence. It is a story about a world where your body was never expected to do this alone. And it begins not at the moment of birth. It begins the moment the pregnancy was suspected. In a hunter-gatherer band of 50 to 150 people, nothing was private. Every woman in the group knew the rhythms of every other woman's body. They lived too close, slept too near, shared food and water and physical space too completely for anything to stay hidden. A missed cycle was noticed. A change in appetite was noticed. A shift in energy or mood or smell was noticed by women who had been watching bodies their entire lives. The pregnancy was known by the group before the woman herself was certain, and from that moment, everything changed. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Harity, one of the world's leading researchers on the evolution of human motherhood, spent decades documenting how pregnancy in early human groups was never a solo experience. The moment a woman's body began to change, the entire group responded. Not out of politeness, out of survival necessity, because in the ancient world, a pregnant woman who was left to manage alone was a pregnant woman who was less likely to survive. And a mother who did not survive meant a child who did not survive. And a child who did not survive was a direct loss to the genetic future of the group. Your ancestors understood this not as philosophy, but as instinct. The moment a pregnancy was confirmed, her workload shifted. Harity's research shows that in almost every documented hunter-gatherer society, pregnant women were moved away from the most physically dangerous tasks: long-distance hunting, heavy foraging in exposed terrain, river crossings in fast water. The group reorganized itself around her body without being asked. This was not charity. This was the group protecting one of its most valuable biological investments. But the reorganization went deeper than labor. Food changed first. Paleoanthropologist Amanda Henry has studied the dental remains and food residue left on ancient human tools to reconstruct what early humans actually ate. Her findings show something remarkable. Pregnant women in early human groups consistently received priority access to the most nutrient-dense foods available: organ meats, bone marrow, eggs, tubers rich in folate and iron. Foods that modern nutritional science has confirmed are exactly what a developing fetus needs most. Your ancestors did not know the word folate. They did not know what iron deficiency looked like under a microscope. But they knew that certain foods made pregnancies stronger. They knew because they had watched for thousands of generations. The knowledge lived not in books, but in the minds of the oldest women in the group. Morning sickness was not ignored. Archaeological evidence and ethnographic records from surviving hunter-gatherer societies show that early humans actively managed nausea in pregnancy using plants that grew within walking distance of their camps: ginger root, wild peppermint, certain barks and leaves with compounds that modern pharmacology has confirmed have genuine antiemetic properties. None of this was written down. All of it was memorized and passed from woman to woman across thousands of years of careful observation. Movement was managed too. Ancient pregnant women did not stop moving. Rest in the modern sense did not exist. But the type of movement changed. Shorter foraging loops, less climbing, more time near the camp's center, where the group was densest and protection was highest. The body's own signals guided this. Fatigue in early pregnancy, the shift in balance as the belly grew, the slowing that the body demands in the final weeks. And the group accommodated every shift without question because they had seen it before. They had seen it every generation. Then came the question of the father. In dozens of hunter-gatherer societies documented across Africa, South America, and the Pacific, anthropologists have recorded a practice so strange to modern eyes that researchers initially dismissed it as superstitio. It is called couvade. When his partner entered labor, or in some cultures the final weeks of pregnancy, a man would take to his sleeping place, restrict his diet, avoid certain activities, and in some cases simulate the physical experience of birth. Moaning, writhing, going through the motions of labor alongside her. Anthropologist Robbie Davis Floyd has studied couvade extensively and argues it is not performance. It is ritual investment. It is a man publicly declaring to the group that this child is his, that he is bound to it, that his resources and his protection are already committed. In a world without paternity tests and legal contracts, couvade was a social announcement written in behavior. The group saw it. The group remembered it. And when the child arrived, the father's bond had already been publicly established. Men who performed couvade also stayed closer to camp during their partner's late pregnancy. They hunted shorter distances. They returned earlier. They were physically present in a way that the final weeks of pregnancy demanded. This was not weakness. It was an ancient form of preparation that modern research on paternal involvement and infant outcomes is only now catching up to. Then labor began, and the world the woman had known reorganized itself one final time. Birth in the ancient world was not a private event behind closed doors. It was a communal event managed by the most experienced women in the group. Researcher Wenda Trevathan at New Mexico State University has studied the evolution of human childbirth for decades. She found that humans are almost unique among primates in one striking way. Human babies are born facing away from the mother. This means a woman giving birth cannot guide her own baby out safely without help. She physically cannot do what every other primate mother does instinctively alone. This is not a flaw in human design. Trevathan argues it is the opposite. It is an evolutionary signal that humans were never meant to give birth alone. The biology of human birth is specifically shaped around the presence of a helper. Your body was built expecting someone to be there, and someone always was. The experienced women of the group managed pain through methods that modern research is beginning to validate. Rhythmic pressure on the lower back. Specific positions, squatting, kneeling on all fours, that modern obstetrics now recommends for reducing labor complications. Herbal preparations made from plants that grew nearby. Plants containing compounds with mild analgesic properties. Plants that encouraged uterine contractions. Plants that slowed postpartum bleeding. None of this was written down. All of it was memorized and tested across thousands of births and thousands of years. The baby arrived into a circle of known faces, not into a sterile room with machines and strangers, into the warmth of people who had known the mother her entire life, who knew her body, her history, her strength, who had already prepared a place for the infant, who had been present for the entire labor, speaking to her, holding her, telling her what they had seen before and what it meant. But not every birth ended this way. Resources in the ancient world were not unlimited. Anthropologists have documented that in conditions of extreme scarcity, prolonged drought, failed hunts, dangerous migrations across difficult terrain, early human groups occasionally made devastating calculations about whether a newborn could be supported. These were not casual decisions. They were collective decisions made under impossible pressure by people who were themselves on the edge of survival. Ancient burial sites across Europe and Africa contain the remains of infants buried with care, with ochre, with flowers, with small objects, suggesting that even in the hardest cases, grief was real. The group mourned together. The loss was shared. No woman was left to carry it alone. And when a pregnancy was lost before birth, the same was true. Miscarriage in the ancient world was not a medical event managed by strangers. It was a communal grief witnessed and held by every woman who had experienced the same thing, who knew what it felt like, who had language for it, not because it was clinical language, but because it was human language, the kind that only comes from having been there yourself. When conditions allowed, when the birth was successful and the child was healthy, what followed was something modern psychology is only now beginning to measure and name. The infant was not raised by its mother alone. Herdy's most influential research shows that human infants evolved to be raised by what she calls alloparents, individuals other than the biological mother who feed, carry, protect, and care for the infant. Grandmothers, aunts, older sisters, even unrelated women in the group. Human babies are uniquely designed for this. They make eye contact earlier than any other primate. They smile earlier than any other primate. They smile earlier. They reach toward any nearby adult, not just their mother. They are, Herdy argues, biologically optimized to recruit caregivers from the entire group, not just the two people who produced them. A human baby's cry is different from every other primate's cry. It is louder relative to body size. It carries further. It is designed to recruit help from a distance, not just from a mother who is already present, but from anyone within earshot who might come. Your infant self was not crying for your mother. It was crying for the group, because the group was always supposed to answer. The mother recovered within a community that closed around her. She was not expected to immediately return to full productivity. She was fed. She was relieved of the most demanding tasks. The infant was passed between hands constantly, held, examined, spoken to, carried by women who were building their own bond with this new member of the group. This was not babysitting. This was the ancient system of collective investment that made human infants the most intensively cared for young of any species on Earth. And then there is postpartum depression. It affects roughly 1 in 5 mothers in the modern world. It is characterized by profound sadness, disconnection, anxiety, and a creeping sense that something is deeply wrong. Modern medicine treats it as a hormonal and neurological event. And it is. But evolutionary psychologist Edward Hagen at Washington State University has proposed something that changes how you see it entirely. He argues that postpartum depression in many cases is not a malfunction. It is a signal. Specifically, it is the signal of a woman whose ancient biological expectation of group support has gone unmet. Her body expected the circle to close around her. It expected hands, voices, presence, other mothers, grandmothers, the accumulated knowledge and warmth of people who had done this before. When that circle does not appear, her nervous system does not simply adapt. It protests, loudly, in the language of despair. This is not weakness. This is your body telling you exactly what it needs and not getting it. Now think about what has changed. A woman today can be pregnant in a city of 10 million people and tell no one for months. She can give birth in a hospital surrounded by strangers who will not remember her name next week. She can come home to an apartment where she and one other person are expected to manage everything alone. She can go days without another adult touching her child. She can feel the weight of it, the exhaustion, the isolation, the creeping sense that she is failing at something that should feel natural, and not understand why it feels so impossibly hard. It feels impossibly hard because it is. Not because she is weak, not because she is doing anything wrong, because she is doing alone what evolution built an entire group to do together. Because the system that held pregnant women for 2 million years has been quietly dismantled, and nobody built a replacement. The village is not a luxury your ancestors enjoyed. It is the biological baseline your body still expects. It is written into the timing of morning sickness and the direction a baby faces during birth and the pitch of an infant's cry and the length of a grandmother's life. Every single one of those things is a message from your ancient biology telling you the same thing it has always told you. You were not built for this alone. And somewhere in the oldest part of you, in the part that was shaped not by hospitals and maternity wards, but by firelight and the hands of women who had done this 10,000 times before, your body is still waiting for the circle to close around you, just as it always did, just as it was always meant to.